And we are back for another casual conversation with the classic. Guys, I got a very special guest today. It's NXT's very own sword-swinging, ass-kicking that almost turned into a tongue twister, Karmen Petrovic. How are you doing today?
Amazing. I'm having a great time. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. I really want to do this because I'm like, oh, you've been in the wrestling space now for a year, and I don't think you've done any interviews within the wrestling space.
No, you're my first wrestling interview.
I'm
really excited.
I'm very excited too because I want you to share your story. I want people to get to know you.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really cool story. So we got lots to cover. We're going to talk about your time in NXT and everything going on there. But I want to break down who Karmen Petrovic, Monika Klisara is personally as a human being.
Yes.
So I guess we got to start at the very, very, very beginning. Let's start off with you. Let's talk about your family a little bit, right? What is your background?
So what a lot of people don't know, obviously, I consider myself a Canadian citizen, but I was actually an immigrant or a refugee coming into Canada. So I was born during the Bosnian War, right after the Yugoslavian War in the Balkan region. I was born in Bosnia, but my mom is Croatian, my dad's Serbian. We ended up leaving that region in like 98 and immigrated to Canada. So it's still pretty fresh back home. And obviously with everything going on back there, they decided that they needed to go somewhere where, you know, they can build a better opportunity, a better life for both me and my brother, who are like the only siblings.
Yeah.
So, you know, my parents moved to Canada and just tried their best to provide for us. They had $100 in their pocket and no knowledge of English whatsoever. So, you know, I owe everything to them. I know ever since coming into Canada, that was the reason why I decided to be so strong on my support of Canada and like everything that it's done for both me and my family. So, you know, representing Canada on like a Canadian international level, like going places even for karate. I was always like so proud to carry that flag just because of everything that, you know, they provided for us.
How old were you when you first came here?
I actually
when you took in Canada, because you're no longer
Canada. I was gonna say that. Yeah. I actually, it's crazy. I landed in Canada on my 3rd birthday, October 29th.
Oh wow!
On the day of literally my 3rd birthday. So it's so funny. My parents have this inside joke of like every time it's my birthday, they're like, "Oh my god, happy this many years in Canada," and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I'm like, "That's so funny. Thank you."
The first 3 years of your life you weren't here, and then from 3, 4, literally you've been, you know, a North American citizen.
Yeah.
So you have a background in karate, as we can tell. It's been ingrained in your character. We've seen a couple of video packages about it. How did you get into karate? What made you want to pursue that as a extracurricular activity?
This is actually one of my favorite questions to answer. You can find it literally anywhere. I talk about it so often, but I love bringing it up. It's so interesting. I remember, so growing up with my brother, my parents, they threw him into, because he was older, they threw him into like soccer as a sport because that's so like Eastern European. And
very
that was
Indian
like a way,
all the Indian kids played soccer, so
it was just like, you know, you have to.
Like
it's like you're breaking the ice.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And they did it as a way of like to get him to like be social and like make friends, because he has a lot more memory of like back home in Eastern Europe than I do. So they were like, you know, try to make some friends and do what you need to do, like learn English and everything. So they threw him in soccer. And so I grew up like my parents being around him all the time, taking him to like soccer games, taking him to practices, all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want some attention too. So I was like, let me be like, you know, that annoying kid that's like, what am I going to do? So I remember one day we were like driving back from one of his soccer games or whatever. And I was like, I want to do something too. Like, what am I going to do? And being that like youngest sibling, I was like such a pain in the ass. So my dad was like, okay, well, you want to do soccer? Because the first thing that he's going to think of as an Eastern European dad is like, play soccer.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, whatever you say, I don't want to do. So I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And my mom was like, oh my God, you should dance. Because she used to do it. My mom used to be a dancer.
Yeah.
So she was like, you should dance. That would be so perfect for you. My mom was always like, be a girl, you know, be a little girly girl. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that either. Because I, again, grew up with an older brother. Like I used to play with like car toys, and like never played with dolls or anything.
Yeah.
I was like a tomboy growing up. And so they were just like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And I was just being so stubborn. And we were still driving back home. And you know, when you drive by a plaza and it says like whatever, like Walmart, Publix, whatever is there. I remember reading out of the window, like it said karate. And I remember seeing The Karate Kid as a movie a day or two ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I want to do karate, like as a joke.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, okay. And then they just like forgot about it and we didn't speak about it again. And I remember going like the next day I was going to school or like somewhere, like preschool or daycare or something.
How old were you?
I was 5.
Okay.
I was 5. And so it might have been like kindergarten or something.
Pretty
And so
impressive reading skills.
Huh?
Pretty impressive reading skills.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, duh, you can read at that age.
Yeah, that's true.
I was like, wait, is that impressive for a 5-year-old?
Can you read that well at that age?
Yeah.
Fair enough. How much older?
Like writing and reading.
How much older is your brother than you?
2 years older.
Okay.
Yeah. So I remember coming home from school and like, or wherever I was, and my mom was like, okay, get ready. And I was like, get ready for what? Where are we going? And she's like, for karate. She's like, I send you up. And I was like, are you joking? Because I wasn't being serious. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, well, you're going to go now. And I hated it. I hated it so much. I went and like at that age, like when you're younger, it's like full of like little boys. You know? It's like a combat sport. So who else is going to be there other than like crazy boy childs that like need discipline?
Yeah.
So I was
too much energy that the parents trying to get them out of the house.
Yeah, they're like, please, like do something. They need to like exert their energy in some way. And I used to get beat up every day. It was just me and one other girl, and the other girl was like a little older than me, so she was kind of like already had a little bit more experience. But like I would get beat up every day, and I would cry on the way home, like, please take me out of this. I hate this. Like, this is the worst thing in the world. And my mom, like my parents, again, Eastern European immigrants, right? They were like, we already paid for the year, so you're gonna go. Like, we don't care. We don't care.
When did you find yourself starting to really like it then?
My very first competition, my sensei at the time, he ended up signing me up after like maybe my first 8 months of like going through torture. Yeah. I went to my first competition. I had like no idea what I was like getting myself into. And obviously, like when you're training, we train both like boys and girls together. But when you're at competition, it's like the girls division and then the boys division. So I competed with the girls, but fully trained with the boys who were beating me up every day. So when I went to my competition, I ended up winning. And when I got my first like gold medal around my neck, I was like, wait, I'm kind of good at this. And then after that, I genuinely like enjoyed the sport. I don't know, it kind of like opened up a new like mentality for me of like, wait, I can do hard things, you know? Because in my head, it was like the hardest thing in the world to go to practice and like get beat up. And then I realized like, even at that age, which is crazy, like even going through hard things, there's like a reward at the end. So like it kind of like clicked in my head and I was like, oh wait, I kind of like this. And then
you wanted to get that award. You wanted
and I was like, wow, even like the praise like from my parents and like from my sensei and like everything that I endured up to that point, it almost made it feel like so worth it. So I was like, whoa. And I guess like ever since then, it's been like instilled in my brain, and I've always just been that person since then.
Isn't it weird sometimes how in life you get thrown into a situation, and I feel like this has happened to you a lot now. You get thrown into a situation and you're unsure of how you're going to like it or if you're going to be good at it. And then you just end up like grasping and being better at it than you expected. And you're like,
100%.
Like this was not in my plan. I did not think I was like, for example,
are you kidding me?
I never thought I was gonna do this interviewing stuff. I did it in the pandemic, and everyone's like, interview and
now we're like
interview that person. I'm like, I still don't think I'm that great, but now to your point, like I like it when I do an
Yes.
interview and it gets a lot of praise and it's, you know, it goes around and things happen.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's a
It
good
like
feeling.
feels like something inside of you. You know what I mean?
And it's like, I don't even know if I really want to do this, but now I'm doing it. And it's like, it's what I do now. This is
Yes.
who I am.
It's like fully like who you are as a person. Yeah.
So you obviously, like, I think that's also really interesting though. Like, obviously you were really close with your brother. And then, you know, I'm sure you guys fight and whatnot as yourselves. Like, I have siblings. I'm the youngest. I have two older siblings, an older sister and a brother, you know, always fighting, etc. Then you trained with a bunch of boys. When was the first time there was a girl in your karate class? Did that ever happen, or how long of it?
Yeah, it actually took a while, to be honest. Because there was an age, like, because even when I got my black belt, like, it's almost like a duty in the dojo to, when you have your black belt, you're training or like coaching the white belts that are just coming in. It's kind of like, you know, you're passing the torch or like, you know, leading by example. And even when I became that like senpai, the coach to try to like lead the way for the white belts, I realized there's like an age between like 5 to like 8 or 9 where it's just boys. And it could just be that, like, you know, the parents trying to have some sort of help because, you know, I don't have kids, but I'm sure, you know, with in a certain way, the boys might be a little bit more difficult to deal with.
For sure.
I don't know if that's a bias, but, you know, I'm like,
I got a nephew and a niece.
The girlies are like pretty easy.
I have a nephew and a niece right now, and they're both 2 years old. And they're both energetic, don't get me wrong, but that boy will jump off everything, will like throw things in the highest places.
For
and I'm like,
sure. Genuinely think it's a thing.
And my mom and my brother were the same, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I've genuinely trained like both girls and boys at that age, and the girlies are like, okay. And the boys are like, I don't care what you say.
Let me just punch something.
Yeah. So it's definitely, there was like I think a period until I was like 8 or 9 years old that I didn't have like a girl partner to train with. So it was like a few years where, you know, I was getting beat up. But after I won the first few competitions, I was like, you know what, I think I gained like a different sense of confidence in myself. And then I almost didn't go in there scared anymore. And I didn't get beat up as much as I did in the beginning. And I wasn't crying every day. But it was almost like afterwards when I was training with the girls, I was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah, because like, you feel like you advance so much quicker because you were training with at their level, instead of just training with a group of girls. So when you went to a competition and those girls, you're like, oh, this isn't like what it's like if I was training with the boys.
100%. And even like when I started training with the girls, because some people like join karate at different stages of their life, right? Like some girls just end up joining at like 9 or 10 or like later on, and they've never got hit before. And I've been getting hit since I was 5. So like sometimes I would feel bad, like even training with some of the girls and being either too much from time to time. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I remember like back having my experience and like getting beat up. And I was like, oh my God. So there was a point in time where I was so confused on like how much is too much and how much is too little, you know? Because I didn't want to see anyone cry. I didn't want anyone to go through like what I went through, because I didn't want anyone to hate the sport like I did when I first started, you know? I feel like I'm such an empathetic person that like when I would injure someone or hurt someone, like especially in practice, especially being a kid too, like in my brain, it didn't like register like, oh my God, I hope this person knows that like I had no idea that was like, you know, especially if they don't expect it or if they haven't like had the experience as much as I have. I was like so cautious. It was like a mental thing afterwards, like training with a boy or training with a girl.
Like you'd have to switch it up and you'd have to know your strength. How many competitions have you won?
A lot. I'm trying to. I mean, I've been competing since I was 5. My mom always used to make fun of me in a way. So we used to compete when I was on the national team. We had a competition every month. But when we were doing like provincial competitions, so when I was like before the national team, we would have one like every 2 or 3 months. So
for the Americans, we have provinces, not states, so it's provincial.
there,
Yeah,
yes, yes, that's a good point because I just
yeah.
see, like, I just be yapping,
So it
and
goes
I hope that people
provincials
get
to
it.
nationals. No, I just want to point that out because I'm like, there's probably gonna be a
Yes,
lot more Americans listening to this.
provincials are like state
Yeah,
competition.
like this. Yeah, the state competitions. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so we would have them like when you're doing their state competitions, we would have them like 2 or 3 once every 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
But the national team ones were like once every month. So it was a lot more often. But my mom had like a joke with me where she was like, "Oh, if Monika goes to this competition and she goes into a medal round, like she's gonna win gold."
Yeah.
Or she's not even gonna get into the medal round at all, and she's not gonna like even
It's either
play.
that or nothing. Yeah.
It was, yeah. So literally, she would call me and she would be like, "You're gold or nothing." Like
Yeah.
that's it. Like that's all that it ever was. Because it was either like I was super on point that day or I wasn't there at all. But I didn't really have a lot of those days, to be honest. And that's just not. That's just the way the cookie crumbled.
So I watched one of your interviews prior to you joining the WWE, and it shocked me. So I have to bring it up again. There's this whole thing you did where you would only go to sleep for 3 hours before a competition. What is
Yes.
that all about? How does that even work? I would be dying and the most grumpiest person in the world.
It's wild. So I don't know
Yeah,
how.
break this
I
down.
genuinely
Did it
don't.
actually work? Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
when did it start? How old
It-
were you when that started? So obviously you couldn't be doing that since you were really little.
No,
But
no, no,
you
no.
had
I
to,
was
like,
when
power
my
over your
parents were
sleeping
monitoring
schedule.
like
Yeah,
my sleep schedule, I was sleeping like a normal person
yeah,
for
okay,
sure.
yeah.
I think when I got onto the national team and I started transitioning into like this, I'm representing like a bigger stage and I'm traveling now with a team rather than my parents. That's when I kind of started like going off the walls because I was like, oh, I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah,
And I can like, create my own sleep schedule, whatever. And I realized like through pattern that when I had more than 8 hours of sleep, I felt more groggy. Like I wanted to sleep more rather than like I couldn't wake myself up. I couldn't warm up properly. I couldn't like be locked in. And then afterward, I remember going to a competition once. I think it was like overseas. I was in like Paris. It might have been like Paris Open or something. And that was like one of my first few international competitions. After like losing the first few, because I was like, why can I not like lock in right now? I'm also experiencing jet lag and I'm like experiencing time change and like whatever else is going on. So I remember not being able to sleep that night and freaking out like, oh my God, I can't even sleep tonight and I have a competition tomorrow. Like, how am I going to work? How am I going to do this? Whatever, whatever. And point is, I got like 3 hours of sleep that night, woke up the next day, well, in 3 hours,
yeah,
grabbed my bags, did like my morning routine, my meditation, like everything else that I usually do, went to the competition and won. Like the easiest competition that I could have done. And I'm sitting there like afterward and I'm like, what did I do different? Because even my coach is like, you did the same warm-up routine, you did like your same meditation, like because we were really focused on like on the national team having a like get like a structured
a
plan
strict
and
schedule.
like
Like, yeah,
yes, of like going into
a
competitions, you want to
strategy
make
of
it
how you're gonna go win
consistent.
every time. Yeah,
Exactly. So like when you medal or when you don't medal, like what was the difference? Or like, you're trying to find that like what that filler. And genuinely the only thing that I did different was have less sleep. And I like told him and he was like, yeah, okay, well, we're not going to count that. And I was like, okay. And then I did it again and it kept happening. And I was like, I genuinely feel like because with karate, it's not just one match like in
yeah.
UFC where you have like a match or like even in WWE where you have one match and
Mhm.
then, that's it. In karate, we compete in tournaments. So it's like 120 people in one division and it's the whole day. And I think having less sleep was what woke up my adrenaline to be able to just go, go, go. And I was I was able to like lock in a lot better, have more of like a laser focus, just get through it. And then once I finished though, and I got my medal and I ate, I was like, ow, 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 ow. There was like,
educate me for a second. Like, so you had a karate competition.
Mhm.
Is it back-to-back fights or is there like a break between fights?
So depending on how big the division is. So for example, most of my national, like international competitions, it was like minimum 100 to 120 people. that's when like you have a larger gap. So it's kind of like a draw, right?
Yeah.
And there's like 100 people lined up. And then it's kind of like, okay, you beat this person and then you like pop through, and then like you go up the up the pyramid.
Yeah.
So at the bottom, you can have like one fight and then have an hour in between.
So how do you stay awake for that hour? Like, what do you
In
do
that
to like,
hour,
stay
I'm
alive?
moving. I'm like, I have to keep. If I sit down, it's
Yeah.
done. It's done. So I'm like, I got my music in my ears. I'm moving. I'm like making sure my like brain is staying active. I have
You
like
know
my
what?
training
Yeah.
partner, my coaches, whatever. Um, Honestly, my first few rounds were always the hardest because towards the end, I'm like, okay, let's go, let's go, let's go. You know what I mean? But like in the beginning, I'm like, damn, like once the first one goes, you almost know mentally, like, okay, I have another hour before I go now.
Yeah.
So
I
it
mean,
was
that's
just about like staying moving and making sure like the brain doesn't move because I knew my body could do the job. My biggest op was always my brain.
no 100%. I'm thinking about that and I'm kind of relating to it because I'm like, I always tell people that I'm like, I can be really tired and be off no sleep, but as long
Yeah.
as we're doing stuff and we're moving around and whatnot, I'll be good.
Yeah.
If we sit for like 20 to 30 minutes and we're doing nothing but sitting, I'm going to sleep. Like,
Yeah, no, my brain won't turn off. Yes.
no,
That's why
100%.
even like just being stimulated, like I needed to like make sure my brain was like just
Have you
focusing.
ever been knocked out?
Yes.
Okay. Just
I
kidding.
was younger. I think I was like 12. I just like ran into a punch and I got knocked out.
Oh, bro.
And what woke me up was my mom screaming. I was like, why is she yelling? In my head, literally I was dreaming and I
Yeah.
like was like, why is she yelling? And I like woke up and then everyone surrounded me and I'm like, what happened? And then soon, like after that, I realized, but I was like, thanks, mom. And to this day, she's still like, yeah, see, if it wasn't for me, who knows what would have happened.
She woke you up with her screams. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That was the only time though. I was like really young.
The only time, she says. Okay.
Once.
Like, you know what happened one time? And I woke up to my mom screaming. I said, never again.
I was like, I'm never gonna give her that satisfaction.
If it wasn't karate, what else would you have done, do you think? Like, because going by the story, you saw it in the plaza and you said karate, and then your parents were like, all right, that's it. But if it wasn't karate, if you could make a different decision, and I know you wouldn't, but if you could, like, what would it have been? Like,
that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I feel like, again, because I'm Eastern European, like soccer is so in my blood. I feel like if that day I said yes to my dad and I was like, yeah, let's do soccer, I would have for sure been on like a pretty good level, I think, of like competing, just because my brother played soccer professionally, like growing up, his whole career, his whole life. And there's times where like we would train together, like either in our backyard or at a park or whatever. I would just like kick a ball around with him. And I felt like, damn, I'm not even trained in this, but like this is going pretty well for me. It might just be like in my blood, you know?
Like, there's
But I
naturally
never
athletic,
like,
and maybe someone in your ancestry was like a pro soccer player.
for sure. Like my dad played soccer, like like down the lineage, for sure. That was like something that should have been like passed down.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I didn't like love it as much as my brother did. I loved watching it. I'm watching the Euro Cup right now. Like it's so like, I think I have a lot of passion for it. But I did grow up as well, like going into school. I was one of those kids that like tried every single sport. So I was like thinking, oh, this is Olympics. Like I'm like on the track team. I'm on the soccer team. I'm on the volleyball team. I'm on the basketball team. I think if I could choose another sport, I love basketball. Like I wish I was taller. I'm 5'2.5".
Yeah.
I played basketball in middle school and in high school right up until everyone else hit a growth spurt and I didn't.
Yeah.
But I love basketball. I wish I was taller, but I feel like I would have probably chose basketball.
Basketball?
Yeah.
I see. I thought
or like, you know, another combat sport.
Well, so I also heard that you don't like running much, and both those sports include some running. You got basketball and soccer.
Well, that's what I mean. Like if I was taller, I would have been a big, and I would have been like taco fall and like just stood there and like
you could have got away with it in both.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Or you could have been in basketball. You could have just been the tall guy. That's true.
Yes. Yes. Which is crazy. Which is crazy that you bring that up because I genuinely like Cardi. No, I am not a cardio person. But I have such a fast metabolism, and I genuinely think because of karate or like any combat sport, you have such a good like pacing. You get cardio without even thinking about the fact that you're running or jumping or doing anything. So that's why I never liked doing cardio outside of like karate or outside of any other sport that I was doing, because I was like, just thinking about running is the worst.
No, and I know, and I've talked to some people. It's like they cannot like jump on an elliptical or a stairmaster for hours or do the treadmill, but like they'll go play basketball and that's their cardio. They'll go play soccer, or they'll do like karate or something. Like, no, that's they're not even competitive about it, but they're like, this is the way I work out because I cannot.
Just no, like, there's no way.
Facility or go to like a track and just run.
Yeah, it's just not in me. It's not in me. Sometimes we have days like in the WWE where we have like all-in days where we're like doing a full like cardio day for 1 hour in between like everyone in the facility, and I'm just like, I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's so fun, and like everyone is like so engaged, and it's amazing.
It's just not your preference.
Building, but I'm like, I don't need this. I was like, right now, especially because the way that like I have a fast metabolism and how small like my body is naturally, I'm like, I'm trying to build muscle. So the more that I like lose calories, the harder it is for me to keep like a certain, you know what I mean?
100%.
So for me, it's like the opposite of like what most people go through. And I hate to say it, but I'm like, it's so hard because I'm like, I'm trying to keep a certain amount of weight, but my body just wants to lose it 24/7. I think because I started sports so young though, you know, I started when I was 5. I never got the chance to like not have a fast metabolism, you know?
100%.
So it's like, it's almost like a uphill battle for me in an opposite way of what most people deal with. But
I know most people wish they had the fast metabolism, and it was like, this is amazing. I have a lot of friends there too, and they're just always trying to put on weight and how to
get. And that's the harder part for me. And so I hate like sometimes, and I know like it's Twitter and it's gonna happen, but people are like, oh my God, can you like eat a burger? And I'm like, I eat so much. You have no idea. I'm like, I'm trying. I eat 3 burgers. I'm like, you don't know.
We will get to wrestling, and we will get to wrestling Twitter, and we will get to how you've been doing the
please, because that's really, a whole different world.
Really quickly, but the last question I have about this world before we get to your tryout and everything that's happening with the WWE is looking at your Instagram page. You know, I've talked to you a bunch. We've briefly talked about it. You've traveled a lot. And a lot of that was due to karate. So when you were in the nationals, you were traveling for competitions all around the world. How many places have you been? And what give us some stories. Like, tell us some amazing things that happened on these amazing
I would love to.
Most people come to wrestling and like now I get to travel and I can do all this stuff. And it's like, you're coming there like, I've already been everywhere.
Yes. And it's so funny, like seeing some of my like peers and my colleagues that have been training in NXT with me who like just recently like moved up to the main roster, and they're traveling so much. And I'm like, I love this for you. And I'm like, thank you. And it's like, it almost like fulfills something in me where I'm like, oh, you're going to love this. And then I'm like sending them like recommendations. I'm like, you should try this. You should try this. Because it's like, it's such a different like experience. Honestly, you can't like put it into words until you go and like live it truly. Because like just seeing how other people live, like experiencing different culture, different language, like it opens your eyes, and you just have a different like sense of like thankfulness and everything of, you know, how you grew up and like the areas that we're in and whatever else. So I'm so happy that people get to, you know, experience that.
I think that's true. And I think every time I've gone somewhere, it made me kind of appreciate home a little bit more and coming home. And don't get wrong, and I enjoy home for a minute, then I want to go somewhere again. But it's just like it's nice coming home. You're like, hey,
so nice.
Some places compared to some places are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Some places are very similar to home. But then you have some places and you're like, oh, like I miss the air back home. I miss the food back home. I miss the water back home.
100%. And even like when you do get to those places where it's like, wow, this is insane when you think about like, you know, a completely different world. Like people aren't even exposed to that, like when they don't travel. And I think like when you come back, you have a different sense of like, you know, what would be the word for it? Like, it's an eye-opening experience, and then you kind of like live differently almost.
Yeah.
And I think because I like started traveling so young for like competing, I just grew up with this like gratefulness of like, I'm in one of the best countries in the world. You know what I mean?
The epiphany that like, you know, should be grateful for what we have. How many countries have you been to?
I just recently knocked off my 30th country.
Okay.
30.
Uh,
It's been so cool. Like almost all of them have been for karate competitions.
yeah.
I'm really thankful that karate is like such a worldwide sport that we were able to travel, compete, meet different people of different cultures, of different like religions, of different ways of training, of different like dojos. You see like dojos with no mat, it's just hardwood. And I'm like, oh, I'm very privileged at home. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and people don't get that because in karate, you're barefoot. So when you're jumping barefoot on hardwood, you're getting splinters and like blisters and crazy stuff. But usually we have mat, like in most dojos or like when you compete. So it's just like things like that where I'm like, wow, like, thank you. This is such an eye-opening experience. And then some people like, they work a 9 to 5 and then they go train and then they like open the dojo in the morning and do stuff like that. So it's been crazy. I've been to South America a lot. I've been to a lot of Europe. I've been to Asia. I've been to Africa as well, South Africa to be exact. And yeah, I think the only continent that I haven't been to is like Oceania and Antarctica.
I mean, one of those, I don't see any reason you'd probably go there, but yeah.
Why wouldn't I go to Antarctica?
I mean, I almost feel like you should go there just so you can say you went there at this point.
I definitely do want it. That's definitely on my list. I want to go see a penguin.
You want to go see a penguin? Like an actual penguin.
It's so funny. I remember, and I think you've seen this interview, but
yeah, in my research that I did.
Are you? Yes.
But tell me, great.
Do you know the South Africa story?
Tell it. It's great. I know it, but a lot of other people probably don't.
I love it. Do you want me to tell it?
Yes, please.
Okay, because this is like the best thing, because this is just who I am as a person. At that point,
and
too,
that's what this is for people to get to know who you are as a person.
Because I was traveling to South Africa for Commonwealth Games. And Commonwealth Games, for people who don't know, is like the countries that were at least once,
under the UK Commonwealth of the
Yes, under the UK Commonwealth. So, we all compete together. It's kind of like the Olympics, but not open to every single country in the world.
Yeah.
And I remember going to South Africa for it. And my only goal in my head, other than obviously competing, was like, I'm going to pet an elephant. And I'm not leaving South Africa until I pet an elephant. Like, I'm like an animal fiend. And so I remember going, and the time difference was like maybe 12 or 13 hours. I don't even remember, from like, Canada or Toronto to South Africa where I was.
Yeah.
And so like I competed, had my whole like competition done before I could like even talk to my mom. She's still sleeping. Like, it was like already a completely different day for her. So I finished competition, and then my coaches are like, all right, like, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? We have time now to explore. Because before competition, we are not like leaving the hotel. Yeah, we're training. We're lost.
Training and sleeping 3 hours a night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. See, you get it. You're catching up. And I ended up winning gold. I ended up being the only one on the Canadian national team to win gold that tournament. Got a little trophy, got a little medal. I like took it off, got into the bus, and I was like, we're going to go pat an elephant. And my coach was like, okay, sure. Yeah, let's just go change. And like, we're going to hop on a safari or something. Point is, it was the best experience ever. Like we were in like a little Jeep that was open, and we like drove through this like open nature reserve area. It wasn't even like locked up or anything like how we're used to it being locked up and like in a zoo. But this elephant just like walked right up to the car, was like, hey, just hanging. And the person that was like around these animals was like, yeah, you guys can come out and pet it. They're super friendly. Like, we're cool. And so I got a picture like petting an elephant. Yeah. And that was the highlight of my trip. I was like, I could go home now. We're good. Like, let's go. And I remember like going back to the hotel, finally like connecting to Wi-Fi again. My mom was like, hello, like, what happened? You're not telling me anything. And I was like, oh, I didn't want to like blow up her phone like while she was sleeping. So I call her, and I was like, Mom, it was the best day. And she's like, yeah, what happened? And I was like, I pet an elephant. And she's like, that's crazy. I didn't ask like about that at all. She was like, what happened with karate though? Like, what happened? I was like, oh, I won gold, but like I pet an elephant. Did you know that? And she was like, okay, but like, what? You just like brazed right by that. Like, you won gold, like at Commonwealth Games. That's amazing. Good job. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But like,
But I
I'm
had an
pet
elephant.
elephants.
Yeah.
And so after that, she was like, all right, well, as long as you're happy. And I'm like, I'm very happy. So, now I want to go to Antarctica and pet a penguin.
It's crazy that even if an ounce of your mom wanted you to be like a girly girl, like you're out there kicking people's asses and you have
Yeah.
zero fear. Like most people
100%.
might be like, I don't want to touch an elephant. It's that close. You're like, no, I'm gonna pet an
I
elephant.
was like, no, like my toxic trait is like the elephant's gonna know me and gonna know like I'm a vibe,
They'll pick up on my energy and know that we're
Yeah,
supposed to be
no, for
best
sure.
friends. Like,
I went like this is crazy, but we were on the safari and I was like, what if a tiger just came up? Like he would know. Like I'm cool.
you
Like
feel like
I'm
you're
good.
one among the animals. Like you're pretty much Mowgli in this.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Like that's crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm like, that's my toxic trait. Is like for sure I'm like an animal whisperer and
How many pets have you had then?
I haven't had a lot of pets just because I didn't get an opportunity to. My parents were like running the house.
Yeah.
If I could now, like with having Caramel, I would have so many more pets. But the way that like our schedule works, I just feel so bad. And I know if I can't give my pet like 110% of me or my energy, like I don't want to put them through that. You know what I mean?
What made
So
you want
not
to get
yet, but maybe soon.
What made you want to get a ferret out of all pets that you could get?
This is actually a funny story too, connecting to the fact that I was like, they'll sense my energy. Like, Caramel picked me, okay?
Okay.
Because I walked into a Petco and I went there specifically to buy a carrier for Rambo, who's my French bulldog in Canada. Because I was like, I want him to, like, when I go visit home, I want to be able to take him back. And, like, I want him to kind of, like, go back and forth. But he's chunky. He's, like, heavy. He's a big boy. His name is Rambo. Okay, he's like this. He's more jacked than me, and so finding him a carrier that goes like under an airplane seat is very difficult.
Yeah.
So I went to Petco and I was
might be a Frenchie, but he's also got that Balkan blood. I get it.
No, for sure. He was like, I gave birth to him. So I was like, let me see if they have like a large carrier or something, and point is they didn't, but I walked into Petco the week that they were having like an adoption week or something. And I had no idea. They were doing adoption of like lizards, ferrets, kittens, and every kind of animal you can think of. But I walked into Petco and the first thing I saw was this ferret in a cage. And he like sprung up out of his bed and like stared at me. And I was like, whoa, oh my God, he's so cute. That's cute, whatever. And I walked by him and I went to like the aisles where like the dog stuff was. And I was going from one aisle to another aisle to the third aisle. And every time I looked over, he's like staring right at me. He's going from like the cage is like this big and he's going from here to like follow me to like look at me here. And then he follows me and looks at me here. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cute. So obviously I didn't find the carrier.
Yeah.
I needed an extra large carrier. They did not have it. And then as I was walking out, I had to walk by the cage again. And I was like, let me just ask. I was like, oh, so like, I've never seen a ferret before in my life other than, when I came to Florida, because I guess this is just a Florida thing.
Yeah.
And the girl was like, oh my God, yeah, he's lived such a hard life. Like, we're putting him up for adoption because we used to sell him before. And 3 families brought him back because he was either too disruptive or like, something like she told me, I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was like, maybe she just wanted to finesse me, but I don't know. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so sad. And she's like, yeah, but he seems to really like you because the entire day, and maybe, see, I could just be like,
but maybe he chose you. They picked up your
like,
vibe.
no, like he was sleeping the entire day. And anytime anyone walked in here, we were trying to make him like available to be pet or like other kids to like play with him, and he purposely like would not wake up and he would like sleep or like huddle like in a corner and like not want to be seen. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. So like I held him for a little bit and I was like, okay, well, gotta go, because in my head I'm like, I'm not gonna ferret, like that's crazy. So I went home and slept, and that night I dreamed about him. Like I dreamed that I was like saving him from something. And I woke up the next day, went to practice, told everybody in practice, told everybody at the PC, like, I'm going to save this ferret. Like, I'm going to save his life. And if I finish practice and I go to this Petco and he's still there, like, that's a sign. That's an omen. Like, I need to get him. So sure enough, finished practice that day. I drove straight to Petco, like sweaty, post-practice, everything. I walked in. He pops up out of his bed again. And I was like, my son. And then I just, and then I was like, let me sign the adoption papers, give him to me. And so, I adopted him and just bought a cute little ferret mansion for him. And he's living his best life.
So is he disruptive? Is he destructive? Like,
No, not at all.
Maybe it was just like a match made in heaven.
Maybe. Also, I was like, I don't know. Now, every time I talk about it,
and he didn't like kids or something. I don't know.
Yeah, people are definitely, every time I talk about it, people are like, you definitely like didn't see the signs. And I was like, no, it is so cute. I don't know. He was a little nippy with me in the beginning. Like, he was like, I don't trust you. But now we're like best friends. And anytime someone like comes over to my apartment and they like meet him, they're like, does he bite? And I'm like, not me.
Oh, that's
not me. He's protective of me though. He's like a little guard dog, but a ferret.
Most people go buy a guard dog. You bought a ferret.
Most people, but I'm not most people. Yeah. So
you're the animal. You're one among the animals. Let's talk about WWE now. We're finally here. Did not think it was gonna take us this long.
See, I'm a yapper. I'm sorry. Look how much
I'm a yapper too, but I'm glad. You know, sometimes it's better than having someone coming on and giving me one word answer. So I love.
Yeah, I got you.
WWE Tryout. How did this come about? How did it go? Tell me about it.
Okay. So I remember this was like pretty deep into COVID. I think everywhere in America was like pretty open at this time, but Canada was in a pretty deep lockdown. We were in like a lockdown for like mid 2022 or like end of 2022. Like, we only got out of the craziness.
I try to explain that to people. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, the pandemic even screwed you up? I'm like, I did not see people that I like networked and connected with in 2019, most people until like 2023 WrestleMania.
No, it was
because it was such a pain in the butt to travel. Like, you had to do a million things just to even get on a plane to go somewhere. 100%. Things were still shut down. Like,
yeah,
it was just, and they charged you up the butt. You try to go.
It was insane.
My ticket was like $500, but now you have to pay like $200 to get vaccinated. Like, not vaccinated.
Yeah,
and I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, it's. Needless to say, it was very, very confusing in Canada at that time. And so I was going through, like, obviously 2020 was the Tokyo Olympics. We were training for that. We were supposed to go to qualifiers. At that point, I was the number 1 seed in my division. And I was like, I just want to, you know, work towards something like that. And I was doing everything I could in my power, you know, training like normal. And then they were like, hey, we're just going to lock down for 2 weeks. And I was like, okay. 2 weeks ended up being 2 more weeks, and so on and so on and so on. And so we got to the point where Team Canada was the first team to withdraw from the Olympics before the Olympics even said we're not doing the Olympics.
Yeah.
They were like, even if the Olympics happens, we're not sending a team because we don't want to jeopardize Canadians or, like, you know, you guys coming back and, you know, being COVID positive.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well.
Was crushed? Are you crushed at this point?
Yes. Yeah. I think that was like the hardest part of my life that I had to go with. And I'm very grateful to be able to say that that was probably the hardest thing I had to
do. I mean, everything you worked for, like through quality and all the competitions and all the nationals and provincials of state to the Americans out there was to, I'm guessing, get to the Olympics, right?
Yeah. Like that was the end goal. And for us, like around like since I was 14 to like when I got into the seniors division, we were fighting for karate to be in the Olympics because that was the first time karate was supposed to be in the Olympics.
Okay, I didn't know that. So that's the first time karate is supposed to be in the Olympics.
That's what a lot of people don't know. It's like they were like, well, you just could have waited another 4 years. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Since I was a kid, we were like working our asses off to be seen by the International Olympic Committee and like to be even placed like in a bid to be a new sport in the Olympics. They didn't do it because karate is like a biased sport. Well, it's not biased, but it's like it's a judged sport. So, you know, it can go any way, and there's no like real like
Direct winner or loser from
scores or anything. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very like, oh, I don't know, if I saw the point, it goes this way, or if that person saw the point, it goes this way. So they were trying to figure out ways to make it more like gymnastics floor routine, or giving like scores for something to make it like, okay, let's try to get into the Olympics. So we were working for so long to get there, and we finally got there, and we finally saw this like glimmer of light, and then it was like just like pulled like a rug like from under us. And that was like so heartbreaking, not only for me, but like knowing how much my parents like had to go through to like get me to that point already, you know, like everything they've sacrificed to like get me to trainings and everything my whole life. And I was like, I promise, like I'm gonna make you so proud, like this is gonna be worth it. And I felt like it was right there. And you know, that was really upsetting. And I was obviously thinking about every other person that was in the same boat with me that had to deal with that too. So it was pretty tough time. And I was like, all right, like that's it. Like if it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen. At one point I was like, yeah, I'm done with karate. Like there's nothing else that I can do after this. And so it was kind of like, it's either gonna be, you know, I keep doing karate but have no point of where I'm gonna go, because
There's
who
no
knows
end
when
goal.
COVID, because at that time I didn't even know when COVID was gonna end, or what was gonna happen, or would
Or
we
if
go back?
Olympics was going to be karate was going to be accepted in the Olympics and eventually like not accepted again because the way
Exactly,
it goes,
which
right?
is exactly what happened.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So
I don't know this, but the narrative that I'm trying
yeah,
to put in my own head is sounding like it's in the right direction.
that's what it was. So it was like they basically said, Canada was like, we're not sending a team. And then Tokyo, as like the Olympic organizers, were like, we're not even having it this year, we're going to have it next year. But the way that the Olympics works is, the Olympics is like between July to like end of August. And then in November or October, the International Olympic Committee sits down and they're like, okay, what did we not like? What did we like? What sports do we want to keep? What sports do we not want to keep? How much is the revenue? Like, you know what I mean? They like go over these things. But because the Olympics didn't happen during that summer, the Olympic Committee still sat down in November and they were like, well, we still have to make a choice for Paris, which is happening this summer.
Yeah.
And when the Olympic Committee sat down, they didn't get to see karate because we didn't compete.
Yeah.
So they were like, well, we're bidding out of it. And so that was really like, that was it. You know what I mean? And it was really unfortunate. So we knew like that was our only opportunity, and they took us out. And the only reason why we had that opportunity was because karate originated in Japan.
Yeah.
And when we had it in Tokyo, they were like, we're not going to have the Olympics if karate's not in it. Because they wanted to showcase like their culture. And of course, you know what I mean? Like it was just like the perfect alignment of a lot of things. And it didn't work because of COVID, which is, again, so sad when I think about like everyone else who had to deal with it as well. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But I do know, once, you know, the Olympic Committee decided, like, which was like November of 2020 at this point, they were like, yeah, no, like karate's not going to be in it. That's when it hit the worst. Cause I was like, damn, like I was already kind of like in a deep, dark state, but
Yeah.
that was like, there's nowhere else for me to go. Like I did everything I could. I don't want to go back to provincial competition. I don't want to go back to nationals. Like I want to compete where like I haven't competed before. And I felt like that was all that was left, especially because I was getting a little older too. I was like, I don't want to keep chasing something that I've already, you know, accomplished. So in my head, I was like, you know, I was deep down this slope. And I remember right after that year ended, it was almost like 3 or 4 days after New Year's of like 2023. I get a call because I had a talent agent at the time who was like helping with random things during COVID. So he was like my sports agent, and he was also like, oh, I'm going to help you like in case there's like a Sport Check commercial that maybe they need to shoot for something, or Adidas. Like I was doing like little things like that during COVID just to keep me like doing something. And he called me and he was like, hey, do you have some like time to talk? And I was like, I have all the time in the world. I'm sitting at home. So, what's up? And he was like, yeah, I just got a really interesting email. And I was like, really? What is it? And in my head, I'm like, please give me anything because I'm losing my mind. And he was like, have you ever considered doing WWE? And I'm like, do you know I'm 115 pounds? Because in my head, like, you know, you're growing up and you're
Yeah.
seeing huge people like doing this. And so
Yeah,
he
it's a
would
land
see
of
her
giants
try.
for years. It's been the land of giants. Yeah. And even
Exactly.
the
And he
women like on TV, they seem bigger than they really
huge.
are.
Even my mom, like now when she watches me on TV, she's like, "You look like 6 foot, Monica." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I know." It was just crazy because if you see me in person, I'm like 5'2" barely. It's crazy,
That's
but
really that
like you
small.
know, the camera works great for
Yeah, no,
me.
because you do seem taller. Unless I like anyone, unless you didn't tell me, I would have assumed that you were
Yeah.
taller than that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I got a little like height in my boots too.
Okay.
So
I mean, don't like, we're not telling secrets here.
yeah, I'm not gonna expose too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so he just like, you know, talked about it to me. He was like, "Yeah, they tried contacting you a few times, but I don't know, you didn't respond." And I was like, "Really?" I guess I don't know if they messaged me on Instagram. I know a few people from my tryout did get messaged on Instagram. They also got emailed. But for me, I just had my talent in my contact information on Instagram. So I feel like they probably reached out to him and it was better because it might have gone to spam for me or I probably just didn't read it.
100%.
Casual Monica type
Yeah,
things too, you
for
know.
sure.
So
I skipped over things I thought weren't even legit, and I'm like, "Oh, this is not real." And then I'm like,
yeah,
"Oh, that
I'm
was
sure.
legit." Okay, my bad.
Yeah. Oops, oops. Because literally after he got on like a 3-way conversation with me and one of the recruiters for WWE, and the guy was like, "Yeah, we tried reaching out to you and you like didn't respond to us," and I was like, I'm sorry. And
Yeah,
they were like, yeah. Point is, like, they saw my karate stuff. They thought it would be a cool transition for me if I wanted to try. They were like, have you ever thought about it? And I was like, no, because I've only thought about karate my entire life. It wasn't that I didn't think about WWE. It was just that, like, I was so tunnel vision focused on karate that I never thought, like, I would have a different career change.
yeah,
You know, I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And if I'm not competing, I'm going to be coaching. And if I'm not coaching, I'm gonna own a dojo and just like run something, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And so in my head I was like, no, I never thought about it. But they told me, they were like, yeah, the tryout will be in Dallas. I had a WrestleMania tryout in 2022 and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can leave the country. And they were like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you know, we're working on it for you if you want, like we're gonna make it happen. And in my head I'm like, if I can leave this country, that would be great. So
Yeah.
that was like my motivation to go was
Yeah.
like,
You're
I'm
like a
gonna leave.
trip. I can leave.
Yeah. It's not
I've
even
been
just
here
a
for
friend trip.
way
It was
too
like,
long. I
dude,
was one day petting an elephant, and now I'm stuck here.
it was, can you imagine? I'm used to leaving the country every month.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
being in COVID was like the craziest thing for me because I was like, I have to
Because
stay
you
in my
can't
home.
leave the country now. Karate's getting screwed over.
Yep.
You're
Yep.
contemplating what to do with the rest of your life. You don't know what your other options are because all you've ever done is karate and live,
Yep.
like, and travel.
Yeah, literally karate and like I would go home and like lift weights. I made
Yeah,
a little like basement like gym to like keep
yeah.
myself entertained, but it was like really not
So how
good.
did the tryout go? And who else was at your tryout that we is now still there? Like,
um right now, who's still with me? Luca Crucifino
mm-hmm,
was at my tryout. Jada Parker was at
mm-hmm.
my tryout. Who else? Kale Dixon was at my tryout. I think that's it. Oh my God, I feel so bad if I'm missing someone. I think that's it
That's
for
fair.
right now.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that come in and out of there, so I just
Yeah, it goes so quickly, and my memory is not good, but I'm trying. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are who I can remember for right now.
so.
Oh, Danny Palmer.
Oh, there
Danny.
you go. Okay, sweet, sweet. So, like, okay, so how was your experience now? Like, now you're at this.
Yes, now I'm in Dallas, right?
You're in Dallas. Yeah, you're gonna be in
Yes.
a wrestling ring, which is a whole
Yeah,
new world.
wild.
Like,
And
how did they go? Did
so
they just say like, "Hey, we're gonna get you guys to do some drills," or what did they make you guys do?
so they gave us like an itinerary when we first got there, and it was so funny because when I pulled up to the hotel too, I was like, I feel like should I have like gone to a ring before coming here? I was like, I don't know. But at the same time, when I thought about it, like in Canada, nothing was open. There was no gyms, there was no like nothing was open. So even if I wanted to, like I couldn't. It
Yeah.
was just show up and do your best, you know what I mean? So I showed up and they gave us
Oh
an
yeah, you know
itinerary.
what? You're right, because Ontario felt like it was on lockdown way longer than like BC. I remember my friends from
Yeah.
Ontario being like, I actually had a friend who started to train in wrestling, and he
Yeah.
was doing the whole training and going to the gym thing, and then being so angry that the gyms were closed again. And I'm like,
that's what happened. They literally opened it for a month, and then they were like, "Just kidding, like we're gonna close it."
and I'm like, that sucks, because I'm like,
Yeah,
at least those things are open here and like in
yeah.
Vancouver and BC.
It
But
was
okay, go on. Okay,
really bad. So
yeah,
even then, like when I pulled up and I like was meeting people, because the first day we were kind of mingling and like we had to do COVID tests and everything, obviously just to make sure no one was like COVID positive. And everyone was like, yeah, like did you end up like trying this like before coming here? And I was like, no. I was like, did you? You know when you like finish the test in school and they were like, did you get this answered? I was like, no, I didn't. I was like, did you? That's crazy.
yeah,
I wish I did that. Like
yeah,
I couldn't, but
yeah.
like, you know, the thought process was there. But so the first day we had basically like medical testings, introductory promos, like just talk about yourself, see like how, you know, like you are in front of a crowd. And I'm like, I've done multiple interviews like for karate and stuff like that. And I've been on like world stages before where there's 50,000 people watching me. So for me, I'm like, okay, I can just talk. And I just talked about myself. I didn't even cut a promo. It was just like
Yeah.
we're talking to talk. And then after that, we got into the ring for the first time, and it was like, this is how you do a front roll or back roll, like right shoulder, left shoulder, like very basic things, you know, that you most of the time people would understand how to
The
do.
fundamentals of wrestling, and this just
Yes,
the movements that someone that would have
exactly.
maybe had prior training to wrestling or went to a ring a little bit would have probably been shown already. So by the time you
For
went there, you would have
sure.
been like,
And it's so funny because the people that did, you
yeah,
can totally tell that they did because
yeah,
they were like backwards flipping, rolling. And I was
100%. Yeah, and then to your
like,
credit, a lot of people come from athletics such as, you know, football where they're
gymnastics.
falling in
Yeah,
their back,
exactly.
gymnastics where they're doing flips and stuff. So it's like
Yeah,
their backgrounds, it might be a little bit more like they're taking bumps from tackles,
right.
or they're doing backflips and standing on doing handstands and stuff, because that's what they did in the other things. You came from karate
Yes.
where it's a lot of like stand, offense, kick, punch. So like
100%. And that's what was the hardest part for me was like even running the ropes. So like the ring, like the wrestling ring is kind of like a karate square too.
Mhm.
Like it's like the same dimensions. It's just in karate when you step out of the ring because we don't have like ropes, it's just like mat. So the mat goes from blue to red. Like the red is like kind of where the ropes would be.
Yeah, it's like out
And
of
if you
bounds.
step out the red, you either get a warning or you get disqualified. So I was like in my head trained my entire life to not touch the red. I
Yeah,
was like, I'm mentally, I know where the red is, and I'm like moving around the red. I'm like
yeah,
inside this blue. So in my head, when I got into the ring, I was like, I can't touch the ropes. Like I can't touch the
yeah,
ropes. It was like ingrained into my brain. So
yeah,
when they were like, oh, run the ropes, I'm like, am I allowed to do
yeah,
that? It was crazy. It was crazy. And still to this day, like if you watch any of my matches, and I told the commentators to start talking about this too, because I barely run the ropes. I like it's almost like ingrained in my brain that I don't want to touch them
yeah.
because I'm trying to get out of this like thing in my brain that I'm not allowed to touch them. I know I can now, but it's so like don't get disqualified. You know what I mean? In my head.
100%.
So I'm definitely warming up a little bit more to it now, and that's why at first I was so against like being or going to the top rope or like jumping off the ropes or anything because I was like I can't touch them.
Yeah. Like,
No,
and also
but
they're not as forgiving as people think they are. If you've ever been in a wrestling ring and hit the ropes, like they're not like, it's not like comfortable.
I
It's not
thought that they
great
would be
feeling.
soft. They are cable, like it
Yeah.
hurt. I had welts like on my back that was raw skin, like at
Yeah.
the tryout. I started putting like patches to like cover it because it was so bad. And I was bruising like on my back because I'm a lot smaller than most people when they're running the ropes. So the rope came like at the top of my neck and like the mid of like the lower part of my back. So I was bruised and like raw skin up here because it's just like,
Yeah, people don't know that. Like it's
yeah.
a new, it doesn't matter what sport you come from, it's like a lot more difficult than people think.
Mhm. And even bumping too, that was like crazy for me because I'm not used to being swept off of my feet or
Yeah.
like on the ground. So judo is like they're on the ground and they're grappling, like
Yeah.
or amateur wrestling too. But like in karate, we're on our feet all the time. So they're like, oh, slam your back into the ground. I was like,
Intentionally?
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So the first two were bad, especially because they would like pair us up with like it was be like a boy and then like a girl, and they'd be like, okay, bump on the whistle, and like this 250-pound football player is bumping next to me and the ring is shaking, and then I'm trying to bump with my 115-pound body and nothing, there's no sound. And they're like, you can smack the ground harder than that, and I was like, I can't. I'm trying.
You're not gonna make that much noise.
I was like, can I do it without him? Because I'm like, he's making more noise than me, and I can't, you know. But it was such a fun experience. I was the only Canadian there, and they were like, hey, we're really happy you were able to make it. And I was like, me too. But it's so funny because I was part of this like tryout where I think at the time they were recruiting like football players, basketball players, and volleyball players.
Yeah.
So these people were 6 foot plus, everyone. And then me, I'm standing there like, I'm looking around and I'm like, there's no way that I'm like here right now with these people.
And then
you know what I mean? I was like, why did I get thrown into this mix of people? I was like, what's going on? So they didn't like I'm not even like blaming them for this. They genuinely like did not pay attention to me at the trial.
Yeah.
At all. There was people who got the contracts right after the tryout, like immediately.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, like we'll give you a call. And I was like, okay. And I'm on my way home, like they're not gonna call me. They're not gonna call me.
I mean, and also like it was exactly what you thought it was gonna be like in your experience.
Yeah, 100%. I was like, yeah, this is for bigger people.
A bunch of giants. Like I don't think I was supposed to be there.
Yes, 100%.
So how was it when you got called back? Like, were you genuinely shocked?
When I came back, I was kind of sad because I was like, damn, I kind of really liked it.
Yeah,
I really liked it. I liked doing it, and I was like, I wish I was taller. I wish I was thinking like, damn, what could I have done? But everything that I thought of in my head was like kind of like out of my control, which is like be bigger and like be like taller or whatever. And I was like, but I did things that I thought were in my control. So like I thought I cut great promos. I was good athletically. Like I could jump. I had like the good thing with karate and any other combat sport is like you use your whole body. Mm-hmm. So I could use my legs. I can use my arms. I can use my torso. You know what I mean? Like everything that they were testing at like, the gym or the lift part of stuff, I knew I was like able to do. And so I got a call 3 days after we came back. Wow. And so did some other people who didn't get the contract right away. Yeah. And they were like, so like, how did you think you did? And I was like, honestly, I'm really confident with like, I came in there and gave 110%. I've never done this before. It's my first time here, but I had so much fun and I genuinely like loved it. And so, yeah, I feel like I gave like everything I could. And they were like, yeah, we agree. Like, we think you were really awesome. You cut amazing promos. We have like no problem with you like on the mic. Which is funny now because I feel like I'm like now I'm like overthinking things because I have a script. But before I was just like talking to talk, like I'm yapping to you right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So now that's kind of like what I need to like get. That's my obstacle right now. But over the phone back then, they were like, yeah, you were like really good with promos. We loved it. You were good in the gym as well. We just don't know if you're like 100% ready to like be in the ring and do like what we do in the ring. So they were like, we would love to offer you like an extended tryout where like you would come to Florida to the PC and you would be here for a week and train with the other athletes and see like, if you would be able to like pick up on it. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I would love to do that. I was like, thank you so much. That's an amazing opportunity. Like, I won't take it for granted. Like, I appreciate that. And I was like, if there's anything that I can fix from like my Dallas tryout to the next tryout, what would you like say that I would need to like work on? Like, what's the thing that you think I could develop the most? And they were like, if you can like, and they said it really, really nicely. So I don't want to pick them off on, but it was kind of just like, if you can gain some like more muscle mass, that would be good. And it wasn't like, because of any way or that you look a certain way. It was just because it would be easier for you to do this sport if like, you have more give, and I completely understand because knowing what I know now and like taking bumps and doing what we do, like it's a lot harder for me because I'm so small. You know what I mean? And so I was like, yeah, 100%. So I got on this like plan with because I had a strength and conditioning coach who helped me with karate. And I was like, listen, like it's a different sport, but I need to like gain some weight. And I ended up gaining like 5 pounds. It wasn't a lot, but I tried really hard. And I came in and it was so funny. I ended up like, when I came to the extended tryout in Florida, like a few months later, I like lied on my like medical report. I put like I was like 130 pounds or something. And it was so funny because I didn't think that they were going to test me when I came back in. But they were like, yeah, go. The medical team was like, go ahead and step on the scale. And I was like, no, don't do this. Don't do this. And it was so funny because now I'm like best friends with the medical guy who was doing my reports, but he was like, don't worry, I'll give you a little give. Cause I was like, I'm trying, but he was so cool. And like, he ended up giving me a little bit more than I was, but he was like, I can't give you 130. And I was like, you're good. But yeah, it was so fun. And I ended up going to the extended tryout. There was 10 of us, 5 girls and I think 5 guys, unless it was 7 girls and then the rest were guys. Yeah, there was definitely more girls. And it was only 1 girl and 1 guy that ended up getting the contract. So.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's so cool.
Thank you. It was so fun. It was so fun. I genuinely felt like everything that happened to me during COVID and like with karate and not working out, it just like it made so much sense for me to like be where I was in the PC, and I felt like I was at home there.
The name Karmen Petrovic, how'd you come up with it? And also, are you used to people calling you Karmen now? I've gotten used to calling you Karmen now because I know when we first talked to you, it was still Monika.
Yeah.
I got like introduced to you oddly as Monika through some of those Battle Arts kids.
Yes.
Then, so it was Monika. But now it's a Karmen. So name, how did you come up with it? And are you used to it?
I got used to it right away. Actually, I don't know how. I just like if people said Karmen, I was like, yep, that's me. Like I don't know. I don't know if I was like super aware of it. I came up with Karmen. I really liked the name Karmen, but I didn't want it to be Karmen like Karmen with a C. I wanted it to be Karmen with a K because Monika spelled with a K, and I wanted my parents to be able to pronounce it. So Karmen with a K. I really liked Karmen as a name. I had a few other names too, but Karmen just felt like the most me, and the writing team loved it a lot as well. So they give us like full creative freedom, and then they just kind of pick and choose what they think is right or like what they would want to like run with. I originally didn't know if they would allow me to have an ethnic last name. You know, I am a white girl with blonde hair. So it's very like, you know, and I understood coming into the WWE, like how the fan base works, and like it needs to be digestible, it needs to be understandable, people need to be able to say it. Like some people even have one name, and so I even suggested like I can do Karmen, just Karmen, and it doesn't have to be my last name or whatever. But I was like, if I do have a last name, I would love to keep my roots. I really wanted to keep my Eastern European background, because I know I'm like one of the only people right now in the WWE that's like Eastern European. I also obviously very much want to represent Canada, but which I do like as much as I can. I talk about it, but I feel like because I come out as like, you know, I'm from, you know, build from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, people don't know that I have like an Eastern European background. So I wanted to keep it in my last name. And Petrovic I came up with because there was a very popular, legendary basketball player, Dražen Petrovic, who played for the Yugoslavian team and was just like a national hero and someone that like everyone had only good things to say. And so I was like, you know what? It's something that I feel like American fans have heard of before, and even announcers have said before the last name. So I was like, let me try to just like follow his footing.
No, 100%.
That's how I came up with it.
No, it's cool, and it does give you more depth. Like, because granted, there are more wrestlers from Canada now than say there was 20 years ago.
Yes,
but to expand it and go deeper into your roots and be like, oh, because everybody for the most part in Canada, United States came from somewhere. So
yes.
Figure that out. Like, I think it's cool. Obviously, you wrestled a ton now. You're on TV. How has this whole learning experience been for you? Tell me about it. Like, have you been grasping it naturally? Have there been some struggles? What have been some of the biggest obstacles you've had to come over?
Well, for sure, coming in, I was kind of like almost tunnel vision on like I need to learn how to wrestle. Like
Yeah.
I'm not used to being held. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
karate, we're very like separated, and if you come close to me, I'm punching you in the face, or I'm
Yeah,
kicking,
yeah.
you know. So I had to get used to like people being on top of me or like grabbing me or moving me, and I'm used to being like it's moving away from people.
Yeah.
So that was probably my biggest obstacle, is like being comfortable with that, of like being grabbed and like moved around or, you know, spoken to, because
Yeah.
I'm very used to like I'm the only one in the ring
You're
when
in your
people,
own head. You're doing your own thing.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
speaking to myself in my brain against my competitor, and everyone is against me basically in the ring. Whereas now in the wrestling ring, my opponent is someone who's working with me, and so is the referee, and like we're all working together. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we're trying to provide entertainment for the fans, and we have to do that together. It can't be a one-way street.
Yeah.
So I think another thing that was a big thing for me was just like my mental coming in. My first 6 months was like so difficult because I came from a place in my brain where I was like, I'm a professional in karate and I'm a
Yeah.
third-degree black belt, and I've been doing this my whole life. And so I'm very like knowledgeable on what I'm doing. And then I'm coming into another completely different world where I have to accept being a beginner. And
Yeah.
that was difficult because I was like, I'm trying to grasp something that's completely new. And if I don't get it right away, I'm upset. And it's not like I'm visibly upset,
Yeah.
like in front of everyone, but I would go home and be like, why can't I get this? And I had to like have grace with myself and just understand like everything takes time. Like I didn't pick up karate in 2 days, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
I
it's
know it's,
different when you're like 7 years old,
yes.
whatever.
Mhm.
And then now you're like 26, 27, you feel
Yeah.
grown up, and you're the top seed in karate when there's about to be the Olympics. And
Yeah.
now you're the rookie again, learning something totally new. And you're, instead
Yeah.
of like teaching other kids and giving people advice on something that you've honed, like a craft that you've mastered, you're no longer the master. You're the student again.
Yeah.
And people giving you advice and telling you what you're doing wrong or what you're doing right.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
Scorpios are, we're a little stubborn and we can't take that all the time. So
100%,
yeah,
100%.
don't tell me what to do, but like you have to.
Yes, yes, and that's the thing too with like I think with me, and I'm really thankful. Like I came from the sport of karate, where like
Yeah.
we're so disciplined, and I genuinely feel like I came in with such a coachable like mind and like mentality that I was like so open to all kinds of feedback. Where I was like, please tell me what I'm doing wrong because I need to like fix this. So I was very open to like getting the feedback and like being able to fix it. But sometimes it was like, why can't I get it? I'm really not getting it. And so I think once I opened my brain to like being myself in the ring, like when I was like, okay, my moveset can literally be me as a fighter. I don't have to be body slamming people. I don't have to be suplexing people. You know what I mean? And so even though I can do it because they've taught us that, like that was the very first few things that we learned within the first 6 months that we were here. It was like, this is how you do professional wrestling. And it was the basics of everything, like specific like arm drags and like, head scissors and stuff like that, But then I realized I was like forcing that, and I can do it, but I was like, it's not who I am. And one thing about me and one thing about Scorpios, which I'm sure you're gonna figure, it's like if everyone else is doing it, I'm not doing it.
No.
And
Or you would
so
have less motivation to do it. Or if
exactly.
you are gonna do it, then it has to be different and distinctive in your
Yes.
own way, because I can't do it like that person. I'm not gonna do it like that person. And
Exactly.
I'm not trying to be that person. So like
100%. And
yeah.
once that clicked in my head, once I was like, I am not doing what everyone else is doing. And I came in one day and I was like, can I do this? Like instead of this? And they were like, yeah, try. See what it's like. And I was like, okay. And I tried it and it looked good. And I was like, one of my very first kicks that I threw, I was like, oh. And then I like the next match I had, I was like, can I try this instead of this? And they were like, sure, but where would you put it? And then they would like ask me, and I was like, let me think about it. And then I would like try to put this karate kick that I would do in a competition in like a sequence of like pro wrestling sequence. And when I make it work or when I make it flow, that's when it looks good. And that's when it like is, efficient. And that's when
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, wow, we actually like that. We've never seen that before. That's really cool. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's where like it clicked in my brain and I was like, okay, I know how to differentiate myself now. I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing. Like I know how to do it, which is good. Cause if someone decides to call one day to me, like, okay, like give me an arm drag. Okay. I'm going to give you an arm drag, you know, but it's like, I'm so glad that I have a bag of like my
Yeah.
own things that I
Because
do.
you came from a combat sport. It's, you
Yes.
know how to hit certain strikes and do certain things. I'm sure you have a little bit of background because you mentioned it, like doing some judo and stuff too. So
Mhm.
you know how to lock some hold and stuff. But I'm sure when they're teaching you like the fundamentals of wrestling and the moves that mostly everybody does to like,
Yes.
start a match or whatever, like that was probably hard to grasp. But once you were able to implement stuff that you already know and feel comfortable doing, it's taking that uncomfortableness and be like, oh, I had to learn that stuff. It was necessary, but now I can add my own spin to these things, knowing that stuff. And you got over,
Right.
which is great. So, who are some of your trainers at the PC?
I had Norman Smiley when I first
Yeah,
came in to the PC. He's been amazing. He's kind of like our beginner technical coach. He's so good, especially with the girls. Like he's amazing. I love him. He's
yeah,
awesome. I had Robbie Brookside right after him, which was amazing. I got into Sarah Amato's class now, who I'm training with. She's
yeah,
amazing as well. She's our only female coach, but like her insight to everything has just been like so mind opening, especially because she sees some things that like I think just males like don't see in general because you don't think
yeah,
about it, like foot placements and like facials and stuff like that, especially with our gear and stuff, you know.
for
So it's
sure.
been so helpful. I've had Steve Carino, a fellow Canadian. He's amazing. Fit Finley is my ride or die. Like
Yeah,
me and Fit are besties.
yeah.
Um,
And I've
yeah.
heard through the grapevine that Fitz always kind of understood the women's wrestling side of things too,
Oh,
and producing it for
like he
so
is
many women in the business. So
the best, and he will fight for us, and he's always on our side for a lot of things. He's just like the best. I have like nothing like but good things to say about Fit. He's amazing.
that's awesome. That's awesome. You also recently got to work a lot with Nattie. We've seen you guys on TV a lot. You
Yeah.
guys been paired together, two Canadian girls, rocking it against Lola and Shayna. What are some of the things you can say you've learned from Nattie? What advice has she given you that's really stuck with you?
Nattie's been amazing. I mean, she's just such a workhorse in general. Like, and you know, anyone can tell that just because
Yeah,
based off of like how much she's working and everything that she's been doing, especially for this sport, this company. Um, I've talked to Nattie a lot, and I think just like her mentality of like longevity in the sport is something that will stick with me forever. Like, she's like, you know, you don't worry about results and don't worry about whatever story is coming next or whatever's happening. It's really just about like how you feel and going out there and being the best you can be. Because being a worker and like going out there and just giving your 110% every time, like that's so much more value than like, you know, anything else. And I was like, oh, that made me feel so good because I genuinely felt the same in a sense where I was like, I'm just trying to do my best and I'm just trying to give 110%. But sometimes the results aren't there. Sometimes they are. Like, it depends on the day. And she's like, the thing is, like, you know, you coming from like a professional sport where you think if I'm going to put in the work, like you're going to see an outcome. And
yeah.
sometimes that's not the case here. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. It depends on the day. It depends on like a lot of other things. But she's like, as long as you come in and give 110% and like you're working and and everyone genuinely enjoys working with you, like I don't think you're gonna have an issue. And she's like, I love working with you. And that always made me feel good too, because I was like, I wanted to make us work so bad. Like, it was my first time being in a tag, and I was just going like to her for anything. I was like, "Do you think that we can do this tag team move? Like, oh my god, we should do this spinning clothesline together. We should do this." And I matched my gear to her gear because I really just like I was doing everything in my power to focus on what I can control to make it work. And she was like, for her, she said it was a breath of fresh air, and she genuinely enjoyed it as well. So I'm really happy.
That's awesome. Have you had any major or special moments or conversations with Shawn Michaels yet? As we know, he's like the head of NXT. He's there every week. Do you have anything that he said to you or stuck with you at all?
Yes, after my very first match on Level Up with Ivy, I came back and I was like on cloud nine. I like It's so crazy. I feel like I can barely remember that day at all because I was just so like, what's going on? And I remember coming backstage and, after all the dust has settled and people have calmed down and like the whole show finished, because I couldn't talk to him right after. Like it was just obviously everything else is happening, like NXT starting and like everything's going on. So after the show finished, I went just to say goodnight and like shake their hand, and Shawn was like, "Hey, like you did so good. I'm like so happy for you. I think like you found your spot here." And he's like, I'm like pretty sure that you can do the sport for however long you want. Like he's like, don't be like me though and stay in it forever. Which was so funny. But like honestly, just hearing that from him, he's like, honestly, I'm not worried about you. He's like, I think you can do this for however long you choose to. And
Yeah.
he's like, and I can't wait to see the journey. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's something that like stuck with me forever.
Yeah, that's the type of positive reassurance you want to get, especially when you're trying something new and it's a new challenge. And like you said, you went from being a top seed in karate to a rookie working on level up in WWE, just getting TV time like after your first match. Like that's
and that was so soon. That was like that was maybe 6 months after I started training at the PC. I was on level up.
That's crazy.
So my brain
really
was
fast, right? It did happen really fast.
Yeah. It was, and I don't think people understand. Like I've never rolled before in a ring. When they told me I was gonna be on level up, I was just like, oh, okay.
I mean, that's what it's for, though, right? And like that's what NXT is for. It's great that NXT is as popular as it is. Like at the end of the day, it is supposed to be that development, but it just is as popular as it is. So it's cool that they created a level up, because that's like, if NXT is that popular, let's create this other show to give people those first chances. And you knocked it out of the park. So it's like, but it's still nerve-wracking because you know it's gonna
It is because I was like, oh,
because them hardcore wrestling fans are gonna watch if they're gonna want to watch. So it's a thing, right? It's been a thing for I think like the last 15 years now, where it's just, we're all regular humans. We want to see the feedback. So you go on Instagram, you go on Twitter, and you see the feedback. How have you dealt with that? Because wrestling fans can be harsh. They sometimes can take it a little more seriously than you'd want them to, or they really don't know what you guys are going through and expect the world from you.
Yes. I don't know if it's harsh, but I think it's passionate. I think they're passionate, and I love that. Like I'm a very passionate person too. I've been passionate about every single thing that I do. I give 150% of like who I am and my entire life. Like even when I came into the PC, I was telling my coaches, I'm like, I like dream about this place. I wake up and I come here and I'm here, and then I go home and I'm thinking about it, and like I don't turn off my brain because I'm just so here. And they're like, that's not good. And I'm like, but for me it works. Like I'm that type of person. I just give 150% into everything. And so I think with the fans, I think they're just passionate and they want to see good wrestling. And I appreciate them for that, because sometimes I hear something from the fans and I'm like, you're right. Like I didn't get that feedback, but you're right. That did look like shit. Like that did. I agree with you. You know what I mean? So it's not even like that it's bad. Sometimes they're like, a little more picky. I'll get like feedback like, oh, another blonde girl. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't fix that. You know what I mean? I've asked them to like, can I change my hair? Because I wanted to differentiate myself a little bit. And the writing team's like, no.
What would you change it
once again, like with the writing team too, they're like, once you have an established character, like if you change something, it's like, why are you changing that? And then it's like asking a million other questions, and then we have to change the story and everything. So those are things I didn't even think about. Whereas now I understand, right? I wanted to get like black streaks in my hair just to like, switch it up a little bit. But they were like, no, you're not doing that. And I was like, okay. But so it's like sometimes I like completely understand where the fans are coming from. I hear them out. At the end of the day, I have to do what my coaches are telling me to do. But other times I'm like, it is so subjective. Like some people hate the karate aspect of me coming into like a wrestling ring with a katana, or like me
Yeah.
kicking or doing stuff. They're like, why don't you do a suplex? You know what I mean? But other people like it. They like the difference. And so I know I'm not going to be everyone's favorite. And I tweeted recently where I was like, you can be the fattest, ripest, juiciest peach in the world, but there's going to be people who don't like peaches. And I totally get that. And I'm like so content with it. There've been people who hated me in karate too. And, that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. So I'm okay with that. And I just genuinely think they're passionate, and I don't take it to heart.
There's so many talented women in the NXT locker room right now. There's so much talent in the wrestling world, just generally on the independents, other companies. The key now more than ever, because, it's been a male-dominated profession for years and years and years. Then we had a women's revolution. Now we have all these talented women out there. And now there's more little girls that want to become professional wrestlers, whether it's because of this revolution, whether it's because they're Total Divas fans, whatever the situation, whether they watched it their entire lives with their brothers, dads, cousins, themselves, whatever. The key now is you have to stand out. And I think one thing you've done very well, that's a crazy build up to this question, but one thing you've done very well is you found a way to stand out. And you've also understood, because this is what I'm curious, like, before I get to what I was going to actually ask you, how much of a wrestling fan were you prior to getting into professional wrestling? Like, what was your knowledge of professional wrestling?
So when I was younger, like before I took karate so seriously, so maybe like between the ages of like, I don't know, 6 to like 8 or 9, I used to watch it. Like my dad used to watch it. He would have it on the TV. My brother would watch it. You know what I mean? My dad was like a fan of like the OGs, like back in the day, So I just always thought like wrestlers were people that were like not real. I was like, you can't think about like, oh, I want to do this in my life. Cause I'm like, there's no way that I can do that. Like that's like a myth. That's like, how? You know what I mean? I thought that they were like superheroes. Like I can't be that, So in my head, I never thought that I can keep it as a profession, nor did it ever cross my mind. But I did grow up. I grew up watching Ray, and I thought Ray was my favorite because I was like, he's small like me, and he's doing all this cool things. And it's wild because I remember like coming into NXT thinking like, well, I used to watch Ray, and I'm gonna be like Ray, who's like the highest of flyer, and I was like, I am not gonna be like Ray. But like I loved watching him, and I definitely grew up like watching him for a little bit, and then once I got so like deep involved into karate, I like stopped watching every other sport, and I was just
100%.
like, this is like who I am.
That's also super cool. Before I get to my question, is like, if anyone's giving you, and it's crazy because we're both kind of in the same age group that pre-social media, post-social media.
Yes.
We played outside till the street lights came on.
Yes.
We had different phones that didn't have social media. Like I was in high school, Snapchat didn't even exist.
No, for sure.
So like we deal with how we treat what people say on social media differently than maybe someone that grew up with it the entire time, and that's their form of instant gratification or reaction to anything they do in life. But it's like all those, hey, you should go eat a sandwich comments or eat a burger comments probably didn't affect you as bad. But also on the flip side, you saw a Rey Mysterio that was small like you and you want to be like that. There's going to be girls that look at you that are small like you and want to be like you.
I know. That's what I want.
So that's cool,
Yes, that's genuinely what I'm hoping for. Because I was like, when I went to my NXT tryout, I didn't think I can do it because of everyone around me who was 6 foot plus. And I was like, I can't do this. And then I somehow fought my way into it, especially after my extended tryout. And I was like, wow, I hope that like if a little girl watches me or anybody else watches me and they feel like, they can't do something because of the way that they look. Like, I hope that, it gives them some sort of, you can do anything. We can do hard things.
Yeah, 100%. And you can be the littlest person with the biggest wins and the biggest
100%.
fight. And that's you, right? Like you're the little person with a lot of fight in her. Like she's
I'm like, I think because I'm so small, I have a lot more aggressivity.
So the other
it's all pent up.
The other thing I want to bring up, a lot of intensity there. The other thing I wanted to bring up on what I was going before I got sidetracked a little bit was you also have like a really already like early in the game, you're in NXT, a great attention to detail. Like you care about the way your looks and your attires and switching it up. Where does that come from? Like why do you think that's important?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question too. I thought, like, right from the jump, understanding the fact that I had full creative freedom was something that was so cool to me because in karate, we didn't have that. It was you're wearing a white uniform with the color belt that you have, and it's so like black or white. Like there was no in between, there was no gray area. So coming into wrestling, I was like, wow, this is so everything's a gray area. Like whatever you want to do, you can do. There's no right or wrong. There's no
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like you do whatever. And my brain was just like, what do I want to do? Like, where do I want to get inspiration from? What do I like? Who am I? And once I realized like the fans are going to want to see something consistent, the fans are going to want to see who I am, and they're only going to be able to realize who I am if I'm giving them the same thing for a little bit until they see, like, okay, that's Karmen. Like the girl with the sword, the girl with the sword, the girl with the sword, you know? And then afterwards, I was like, when I came up with the idea for my gear, I was like, yeah, like I got it. And I was like, this is what it's going to be. And now I'm just going to play around with it. Like, what do I want to portray here? What do I want to do here? And so my very first gear was just like two colors that I really like, which was like red and black. And I was like, let's just hope for the best. And everyone really liked the gear. Like I remember debuting on like a house show with it, and people on Twitter found it and they were like, whoa, gear eats down Queen Mother. And I was like, yes, thank you. Because I was at home like sketching what I think would work. And I ended up like going through with it, and it just worked really well. And I was like, I love this. And I then like let my creative freedom go, and I did like a Kill Bill inspired one with like the yellow and red. It's supposed to be blood, but I try to like make it less look like blood because they were like, hey, you can't do that. And I was like, oh, okay. And then just down the line, I was like, yeah, let me like go with the flow, like with the storyline. Like when I was facing Lola recently, and I came out with the blue like Elsa ice gear, I was like, this is perfect. Nattie's coming out with me. Lola's talking about she's the Latina heat. And I was like, we're from Canada. We're from the cold. And we got ice in our veins. I was like, I'm putting this together. And that's how I came up with that gear. Like, it was just...
But you get that attention to detail, like using the story, using your situation.
Yeah. I can't wait. And I hope and pray, like, I'm on NXT Heatwave. Because the idea that I have for the gear...
I mean, it is back in Toronto, so hopefully. What is your favorite gear out of all the gears you've had so far then? Because you've had quite a few.
I've had a few. I really liked my white and gold one is the one that I did, the one that I debuted on NXT with for the Breakout tournament. And so that one was kind of like paying tribute to, so I had a nickname Gold Blooded when I was in karate, because again, I would either win gold or nothing. So I wanted to come out like I'm doing this Breakout tournament. I'm doing a tournament that I've done tournaments my whole life. And I was like, I'm going to come out with like white and gold, and everyone loved it so much. But I started having like slight like malfunctions with like the trunks, and I was getting told like by coaches, like that's not good. And I was like, okay. And so now I'm kind of like, damn, I can't use them anymore. But other than that, I think my, the one that got like so much commotion after that was my Halloween Havoc gear, my Cruella.
Yeah, the Dalmatian.
Yeah. So I grew up watching like 101 Dalmatians, and I'm a huge puppy dog fan. And so I was like, this is like great for me. So especially because I'm coming out with a sword. So it's like, it makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And listen, like that's what I mean with the attention to detail. Like every gear has a story behind it. Like it's not for like that. I'm sure there's other people like that, but that's not everybody.
No, every single gear has a story behind it for sure. I'm one of those people that's like, it has to mean something.
So you add sentiment to everything as much as you can. And I mean, you could always come out with another white and gold gear that hopefully doesn't have malfunctions, because that gold-blooded things that could catch on.
Yes.
Could definitely catch on. We should definitely wrap this up. We've been talking for like an hour and a half. We got the wrestling. No, it's not. As long as I'm trying to make sure you're not stuck here forever.
No, we're good.
And as you know, I wanted people to get to know you with this interview. I wanted people to get to know who Karmen Petrovic really is as a person. But there's a few other things I want to ask you before we wrap this up. I'm curious, like, because I love wrestling. Everyone thinks my whole life we're always doing wrestling, but they were to look at my phone, my music choice is all over the place. I listen to I got playlists of everything.
Right.
what are you listening to right now? Like, what are, say, your top 3 songs you've been listening to right now?
Songs are like crazy, like
Artists. You can do artist.
I would even do genre. So I grew up around the hip hop scene. I'm like, you know, I'm a huge like throwbacks fan. Like I'm a 50 rider. Like I will listen to 50 any point in time. But I like hip hop. I like reggae. And recently like R&B.
Fair enough. Okay. Do you miss anything about Canada? Like, what do you miss about Canada the most? I know you come frequently, but like living up there, like, what's one thing about Canada that you're like, this is what I miss?
I don't know. I was gonna say safety.
Yeah, that's fair though. It is
But
a
I
little bit
feel
wild,
like
wild west down
I don't know.
there.
But Toronto's kind of becoming Gotham City. So like, can I
That's
say safety
Vancouver has
anymore?
always been like that too. I always tend to just miss, like, I don't know, man. There's something in the air. Just like,
I also no, I know what I miss the most. The multiculturalism.
fair enough.
I miss walking down Toronto, like downtown, and there's like, if you want Jamaican, there's like an authentic Jamaican spot. If you want Korean barbecue, there's like an authentic Korean barbecue place. Like you can think of anything at the top of your head. Like you can, I don't know, bohemian food.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's
we have
like that
that.
over here too.
We have
You're right.
that. You want like something so specific from Korea? We have that.
Yeah.
So it was just like, you know, Serbian food. Like we don't have Serbian food in Florida here, but maybe in Miami, but not in Orlando.
For
And
sure.
so I'm like, I miss eating like my culture food and stuff like that. So that's definitely like, you know, just being able to like speak my own language and stuff like that. So that's definitely
There is definitely
multicultural.
certain places I've been in the States, and I'm sure there's places like this in Canada too. I just haven't traveled to them, where I was like, oh, I felt like a minority. Like, I actually felt the Indian on me, and I'm like, oh, I'm Indian. Like, I'm not, like, because I've grown up so multicultural. I've had friends of all races. I'm like, you know, and like sometimes I'm really good at fitting in with any crowd, but then there's been situations where I'm in the States, so I'm like,
I agree.
well, I'm a person of color. And I did not realize that until right now. Like,
until exactly this moment. Yes.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna fit in on this situation no matter how hard I try. Like,
100%.
this isn't gonna happen here, and it's mainly happened to me down there. There's nothing against. It's just different areas where, like, where you're at, right? I'm sure if I like go to somewhere in Newfoundland, I might feel the same way, but I've never been like, you know, like,
it really is. It's so true.
Yeah, like if I'm somewhere in Halifax, I might feel the same way, but I've mainly been to places in Canada that are very metropolis-y, like, you know, Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal. Like, I'm in places where it is very multicultural, but I'm sure, like, and I'm in a lot of places in my province, but yeah. Last but not least, it's a question I ask everybody, and we'll wrap it up with this. We definitely gotta do this again further down in your career when you start doing a lot more, so we can catch up to see where you're at, because this was more getting to know you prior to wrestling, and then 40 minutes of wrestling. But I asked this to everybody. If you think about that 5-year-old little girl that was sitting in your parents' car that drove past the karate sign, did not want to play soccer like your brother, but had to do something or you were going to kick someone, and just from what I hear, I already feel like I already know the answer, but do you feel like you've made your younger self proud?
100%. Oh my God, look who just walked in.
Oh no, we got a cameo. From Caramel.
You want to give me a kiss? Thank you.
Oh, he's so perfect for the camera. Comes in with a kiss, eh? Look at that.
That's just my little baby. That's Caramel. Wait. He like knows exactly where the camera is. He just
not camera shy at all. That's
okay. Bye. So yes, I definitely feel like I've made her proud. I think everything in my life and any opportunity I had to do something that was chasing my dream, whether it was a dream that was 10 years long or whether that was a short-term dream, I feel like I've been the type of person to give 110% and have no regrets. So I think I'm so happy that I've been built that way and that I've been just like so headstrong in chasing my dreams and whatever it meant and whatever it entailed. And I think that's why she's 100% proud, because I don't have any regrets about anything that I've done in my life. And I feel like I'm so happy and I'm in a place where I feel like I belong. And I couldn't have gotten here without just trusting my gut and following what my heart says.
That's perfect. I agree. Well, I guess one last thing, if you could give advice to anybody that wants to do anything, because you've done a lot, whether it's karate, whether it's travel, whether it's pursuing something totally new, professional wrestling, what's that one piece of advice you'd give them?
Just take the jump. Take the jump. Everything seems so much crazier in our heads than it is in real life. We make it a lot more complicated than it is, for sure.
Right.
And it's just like, once you take that step outside the comfort zone, that's where like living is done. And I feel like once you do take that step, once you do take that jump, you get the ball rolling and everything else comes afterwards. And it's just like, as long as you don't hold yourself back, no one will hold you back.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you doing this. We'll definitely do it again down the road.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I loved it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Sorry for yapping your ear off.
No, it's okay. That makes a great guest if you keep yapping.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good luck editing this.
Good luck with everything you're doing. Good luck with your growth. Can't wait to see where you are a year from now and then a year after that. Do not change. Keep paying attention to detail. Keep grinding. Keep wanting to kick people's heads in. I think everything you're doing so far has been super cool. And I'm hyped every time I see you on TV. I'm like, this is dope. This is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And yeah, I appreciate your time. Everybody follow Karmen on social media, wherever she is. I'll share the links below. Follow her journey, see where she goes next. And I hope a lot of you feel like you got to know her a lot better now than just what you see on TV or social media or whatever people are saying on the Twitter. But
right. But I love y'all too, y'all haters. It's okay.
Passionate haters. But
exactly.
And you're
sending love to everyone. They probably need it. It's okay.
Yeah. And just keep doing the thing. We'll see you all later.
Ooh, Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
It's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.
Closed on Sundays.
Yeah, right. I'm like, and it's always Sunday when I crave Chick-fil-A.
Yo, that's happened to me so many times. I'm like, I'll make a Chick-fil-A.
It's like, so good, but the nuggets are so good, and the fries, the waffle fries, just
and the Chick-fil-A sauce with all the Americans that be so mad at us. Like, how did you forget this? And how did you forget about this?
How dare you?
Like, how dare you've never walked into a Cracker Barrel before? What do you mean you've never been to Applebee's?
Well, how dare you? I don't know. I'm just
the franchise chicken places. You never went to like Earl's.
Yeah, no, Earl's is so good. Cactus Club? Are you kidding me?
No, they don't even know. Anytime I have relatives come from the States and I take them to Cactus, which to me now is like such a cliche place to go.
I know, but it's so good.
But that's the thing, like, but the food always hits. And it's always
for sure. They nervous the Jack Astors.
Yeah, they don't know.